This Lafarge aggregate site is at Charing near Ashford in Kent. It totals 15 hectares and was worked for sand for nearly 30 years. What is significant here is the sheer depth of the sand, up to 24 metres in places. As a result, the restoration features some steep slopes. The work was progressive, and many of the trees planted on these new hillsides over the years are now mature. So too is the original screening around the boundaries. Grazing has been established in the base of the quarry, together with wet grassland, which in winter becomes a lake and attracts wildfowl. Our judge's verdict was that it is a very good example of low-key restoration and that the woodland and walks are a definite community asset.
More than 150 species of birds have been recorded on this 62-hectare former sand and gravel site operated by Hanson at Irthlingborough in Northamptonshire. The site is one of a number along the Nene Valley, which have been recognised with joint SSSI status. The lakes have both shallows and deep water, with spits and small islands. It makes them attractive, not just to the legion of wildfowl, but to amphibians and dragonflies. And with swathes of meadow for summer grazing, original mature trees and much new planting, there's a mosaic of habitats that attracts the likes of badgers, otters and foxes. It's a watery landscape, but that's the way it's been designed to be, not just for its wildlife interest, but as an important part of the flood capacity that protects towns and villages alongside the Nene.
It started as a sand and gravel quarry, but this 77-hectare Hanson site north of Ringwood in Hampshire is now part of a wider complex that is of international significance for wetland birds and much loved by the public. The Blashford Lakes entry is a partnership with the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust and the Bournemouth and West Hampshire Water Company. Originally specified by planners as a public reservoir, a change of thinking in the latter stages of working meant that Hanson had to switch the emphasis more towards nature conservation, with significant changes to the lake margins. A large screening bank along the boundary with the A338 is not just an effective feature in its own right, but welcome pasture for New Forest ponies. The site is very popular with birdwatchers, who can enjoy any of 3 secluded hides.
The National Memorial Arboretum is the UK's memorial to those who have given their lives in the service of their country. It comprises 60 hectares of trees and memorials, and it's been created on land restored by Lafarge Aggregates, following sand and gravel restoration. The entry is a joint one between the two parties. The site is in the village of Orrelwash in Staffordshire, close to where the rivers Trent, Tame and Meese meet. It's a location that makes the Arboretum an important wildlife corridor, and there's already plenty of evidence of its biodiversity potential. As our judges pointed out, it can only get better as it matures. Set within the National Forest, this site already contains 150 memorials of national significance and is widely appreciated by those whose relatives are commemorated here, and by many other visitors, and by children in particular.
Tarmac's entry for this year's awards is close to the Norfolk village of East Dereham. This part of the wider Bittering Quarry is known as Hell Pit and covers 23 hectares restored to grazing, lake and woodland. The lake has been sculpted to an interesting shape with shallows and reed beds, and there are islands when the water level is low. It is home to a range of fish including carp, roach, tench and silver bream. The farmer who owns the site has been closely involved in the restoration and now grazes part of it with Highland cattle and generally manages the remainder for wildlife. While not open for public use, it is much enjoyed by his family, friends and workforce for fishing, shooting, walking and picnicking.
Lafarge's Cauldon cement works is a prominent feature of the landscape near Waterhouses in Staffordshire and has been for more than 50 years. The entry covers 4 distinct areas of its limestone and shale quarry, totalling 17 hectares. First, there's a former waste tip close to the plant which has no fewer than 24 grassland species, making it of major biological interest. Another old waste tip has become moorland grassland and is used for grazing. Then there's a 30-metre deep lake whose margins have been graded to produce shallow water with bankside slopes for biological interest. And finally, an innovative reedbed water treatment system which treats contaminated runoff water prior to safe river discharge. Our judges were impressed, not just with the work, but with the enthusiasm of the local team and the involvement of the local community.
They've been digging sand and gravel in this part of the Wensum Valley west of Norwich for more than 40 years, but now extraction has given way to a series of reed and tree-fringed lakes alongside the river. This entry covers more than 60 hectares at Swanton, Morley. It comes from Cemex UK in partnership with the Norfolk Fly Fishing Association and the Dereham and District Anglers. The fishermen now share this idyllic setting with priority biodiversity species like the otter, reed bunting, marsh tit and song thrush. There are in total 5 different habitats spread through the site. Leaving existing woodland in place between the lakes lends an overall impression of maturity. The final touch has been to open the site up to the public via permissive paths which connect into the local network. Our judges were particularly impressed by the scale and apparent maturity of a site that was still being quarried just 6 years ago.